Turin, 1868. A Catholic priest collapses into bed after another 17-hour day teaching street boys to read. His name is Giovanni Melchiorre Bosco. He is 53 years old. Within minutes, he is asleep. Within minutes, he is somewhere else. An angel appears. The angel takes his hand. They walk through darkness to a wide road lined with roses. Beautiful, comfortable, sloping gently downward. On that road are hundreds of boys. Boys Don Bosco recognizes. Boys from his oratory. Boys he baptized. Boys he taught to pray. They are running, laughing, playing. Then one stumbles, then another. They fall into hidden traps on the ground, lassos, snares. Each lasso has a name carved into it. Pride, disobedience, impurity, anger, human respect. The boys scream. They are dragged down the slope toward a bronze gate. The gate opens. Fire pours out. The boys vanish into it. Don Bosco tries to run forward. The angel stops him. The angel says 6 words. What you see is already happening. He told them the sins that drag souls to perdition. He told them the weapons God left beside the traps. Confession, communion, the rosary, devotion to Mary. He told them which boys he saw fall. He did not name them, but some boys knew. 17 of those boys changed their lives that night. 4 did not. By 1870, 3 of those 4 were dead. 1 from suicide, 1 from a bar fight, 1 from typhus in a brothel. The 4th lived to age 32 and died in prison. Don Bosco saw it all in advance. He saw the road, he saw the traps, he saw the fire. He saw what happens when children stop going to church and their parents do not fight for them. Battista Lemoyne, and published by the Salesian Society in 1898, 10 years after Don Bosco's death. The dream is corroborated by eyewitness testimony from John Bosco, a lay assistant at the oratory, who gave a sworn deposition in 1891 confirming that Don Bosco predicted multiple deaths with exact timing and that every prediction came true. The blistered hand is mentioned in Don Bosco's own handwritten notes preserved in the Salesian archives in Turin. The physical mark lasted 5 days. That is not allegory, that is flesh. Lemoyne, and published in 1898 by the Salesian Society, cross-referenced with the sworn testimony of John Bosco, documented in 1891 and verified against the archival handwritten notes of Don Bosco preserved in the Salesian Historical Archives in Turin. These are not popular retellings. These are primary documents. Now, back to the information. John Bosco was born August 16, 1815 in Becci, a hillside hamlet near Turin. His father Francesco died when John was 2 years old. His mother Margherita Occhiena raised 3 boys alone in a stone cabin with a dirt floor. They were so poor they ate chestnuts for weeks. Sometimes they ate nothing. Margherita taught John to pray. She taught him to see God in every person. She taught him that idle hands open doors for the devil. John worked from age 4, herding sheep, hauling water, cutting wood. At age 9, he had his first prophetic dream. In the dream, he saw a field full of boys. The boys were fighting, cursing, blaspheming. Young John tried to stop them by shouting and hitting. A man appeared, tall, radiant, imposing. The man said 8 words, not with blows, but with gentleness and kindness. Then a woman appeared, beautiful beyond description. She said 5 words, "Make yourself humble, strong, robust." The boys transformed. First into wild beasts, lions, wolves, bears, then into lambs, white, gentle, quiet. The man looked at John and said 4 words, "In due time, everything." That dream guided John Bosco for 73 years. The Industrial Revolution was pulling farm families into factories. Families crammed 3 deep into single rooms with no windows. Children worked 14-hour shifts in textile mills for pennies. When the mills laid them off, the children went to the streets. Pickpockets, beggars, thieves. Don Bosco visited the prisons. He saw boys 12 to 18 years old chained in rat-infested cells, beaten, starved, forgotten. He saw their eyes. Dead eyes. He wrote in his diary that night, "To see so many boys, all healthy, strong, intelligent, lacking spiritual and material food, was something that horrified me. I must, by any available means, prevent boys ending up here." That was December 8th, 1841, the feast of the Immaculate Conception. Don Bosco was vesting for Mass. A sacristan dragged a ragged boy out of the church. The boy refused to serve Mass because he did not know how. Don Bosco heard the boy crying. He called him back. The boy's name was Bartolomeo Gorelli, 16 years old, illiterate, orphan, no family, no money, no future. Don Bosco sat with him for an hour. He taught him the Our Father. He taught him the Hail Mary. He asked if Bartolomeo wanted to come back next week. Bartolomeo said yes. Don Bosco told him to bring a friend. The next week, 9 boys came. The week after that, 20. By summer 1842, 80 boys gathered every Sunday. Don Bosco called it the Oratory, a place where boys could pray, learn, play, work, laugh, be safe. He taught them catechism, he taught them to read, he taught them trades, shoemaking, tailoring, carpentry, printing. He juggled for them. He walked tightropes, he did magic tricks. He made them laugh before he made them pray. By 1852, the oratory housed 36 boys. By 1861, 800. Don Bosco never used punishment. He used what he called the preventive system. 3 principles: reason, religion, loving kindness. He wrote in his rule book, as far as possible, avoid punishing. Try to gain love before inspiring fear. He never hit a boy. He never locked a boy in a cell. He never humiliated a boy in front of others. He said once, "In 40 years, I do not remember using formal punishment. With God's grace, I have always obtained not alone what duty exacted, but what my wish simply expressed, even from apparently hopeless children." In 1886, a group of boys at the Salesian College in Sarria, Spain, plotted to murder the superior, Father Branda. They planned it for weeks. On a January night, Father Branda woke to the voice of Don Bosco shouting his name. Don Bosco was in Turin, 400 miles away. Father Branda searched the building. He found the plotters with knives hidden under their mattresses. They confessed. Don Bosco expelled them before sunrise. Later, Father Branda wrote, "How did Don Bosco know? He was not there. He saw it in a dream. He saw it and shouted across the miles. God used him to save my life. Why don't you tell them?" Don Bosco turned and saw a distinguished person at his bedside. He asked, "What should I tell my boys?" The voice said, "What you have seen and heard in your last dreams and what you will have revealed to you tomorrow night." Don Bosco spent the next day dreading the night. He sat at his desk until midnight, browsing through books, anything to avoid sleep. Finally, exhaustion won. He fell asleep. Immediately, the same person appeared. "Get up and follow me," Don Bosco protested. "Please leave me alone." "I'm exhausted," the guide insisted. Don Bosco followed. He saw the boys of his oratory, all of them. He recognized every face. They were running down the road, laughing, playing, racing. Then the first boy stumbled. He fell. A lasso appeared wrapped around his ankle. The boy screamed and was dragged down the slope toward a ravine. Then another boy fell. Then another. Then 10 at once. The lassos multiplied. Don Bosco ran forward. The guide stopped him. "Look closer." Don Bosco knelt. Each lasso had a name burned into the rope: pride, disobedience, envy, impurity, theft, gluttony, anger, sloth, laziness, human respect, the guide said. Human respect is the deadliest, fear of what others think, that kills more souls than all the rest combined. Don Bosco watched as lasso after lasso caught his boys. He saw them dragged, screaming toward the mouth of a furnace. The guide said, "Follow me." They descended. At the bottom of the ravine stood a bronze gate, above it an inscription: "The wicked will go to the everlasting fire." Matthew 25:46. Around the gate, more inscriptions covered the walls. "He will give fire to their flesh, so that they burn eternally. They will be tormented day and night, forever and ever." Revelation 20:10. There is no order here, but eternal horror dwells. The smoke of their torment goes up forever. The bronze gate opened for a moment as another boy crashed into it. Don Bosco saw a corridor, at the end a massive crystal window. Beyond it, a lake of fire. In the fire were boys. Boys he knew, boys he taught, boys he baptized. They were screaming, writhing, burning. Their skin blackened, their eyes hollow. They reached toward him. They mouthed words: "Help us. Save us. Tell them." Don Bosco turned to the guide. "Can I go back and warn them?" The guide said, "You must." Don Bosco asked, "What should I tell them?" The guide lifted veils. Under each veil was a different group of boys, each group under a different sin. He showed Don Bosco the boys trapped by disobedience, the boys trapped by impurity, the boys trapped by pride, the boys trapped by idleness. He showed Don Bosco boys who attended Mass but daydreamed through it, boys who went to confession but hid their worst sins, boys who prayed the rosary but never meant a word. The guide said, "These are not hypothetical. These are your boys. Right now, this is the road they are on." The pain was unimaginable. He pulled back. His hand was blistered. "Burned," the guide said. "Listen carefully. There are 1,000 walls between this wall and the real fire of hell. Each wall is 1,000 measures thick. Each measure is 1,000 miles. This wall you touched is millions of miles from the real fire. It is just the remote rim." "And it burned you," the guide said. "Now go back and tell them. Tell them what awaits them if they do not change. Tell them to obey. Tell them to confess. Tell them to receive communion. Tell them to pray. Tell them to avoid idleness. Tell them the devil does not rest. Why should they?" When morning came, the skin began to peel. It peeled for 5 days. That Sunday night, May 3rd, 1868, Don Bosco gathered his boys. He told them the dream. He told them everything. The road, the lassos, the gate, the fire, the wall. He showed them his hand. He said, "This is not imagination. This is not a metaphor. This is real. Hell is real. The road to hell is real. The traps are real. And some of you are on that road right now." He did not name names. He did not point fingers. But he described what he saw. He described sins, patterns, behaviors. Some boys recognized themselves. Their faces went white. After the talk, 17 boys approached Don Bosco privately. They confessed. They changed. 4 others laughed it off. 4 others ignored the warning. By 1870, all 4 were dead. Over 160 dreams recorded in 7 large volumes. Dreams about individual boys. Dreams about the future of his order. Dreams about the church. Dreams about wars. Dreams about popes. Many came true during his lifetime. In February 1865, he told the boys that one of them would die soon. He would not say who. On March 16, 1865, Anthony Ferraris died after receiving last rites. Don Bosco had seen it 3 weeks in advance. John Bosco, a lay assistant, confirmed the event in a sworn deposition. Bosco wrote, "Don Bosco told us many other dreams concerning oratory boys' deaths. We believed them to be true prophecies. We still do, because unfailingly they came true. During the 7 years I lived at the oratory, not a boy died without Don Bosco predicting his death. We were convinced that whoever died there under his care surely went to heaven. That is the testimony of a man who lived there, a man who watched it happen over and over, a man who swore an oath before God that every word was true. The vast expanse of water is covered with ships in battle formation. All are heavily armed with cannons, bombs, firearms, and even books. They are heading toward one stately ship mightier than them all. The supreme commander of the big ship is the Pope. He sees the fury of enemies and calls the captains of smaller ships for a council. But a furious wind prevents them from meeting. The enemies attack. The Pope is struck. He falls wounded. The crew rushes to help him, but he is struck again. He dies. A new Pope is elected immediately. The enemies renew their attack. The new Pope steers the ship between 2 massive columns rising from the sea. One column holds a statue of the Immaculate Virgin with a placard reading, "Help of Christians." The other column, taller and larger, holds a giant host with the words, "Salvation of the Faithful." The Pope moors the flagship between the 2 columns. The wind stops. The sea calms. The enemy ships collide and sink. The church is saved. Don Bosco ended the vision with 6 words. "Only 2 things can save us," he said. Devotion to Mary and frequent communion. Let us do our very best to use these 2 means and have others use them everywhere. The solution Don Bosco gave in 1862 is the same solution needed now. Mary, the Eucharist. Nothing else will work. Don Bosco saw it. He told his boys. He told the church. The dream is recorded in 40 Dreams of St. John Bosco, compiled by Father J. Bacchiarello and published by the Salesian Society. It is not speculation. It is documentation. It sits in archives in Turin and Rome. Anyone can read it. Few do. Don Bosco was not just a dreamer. He was a builder. In 1859, he founded the Society of St. Francis de Sales, 15 seminarians and 1 teenage boy. Their purpose was to continue his work. Save boys, teach boys, form boys into men of God. The Salesians still exist today. They are the 2nd largest religious order in the world. Over 14,000 Salesians in 134 countries. By the time Don Bosco died in 1888, there were 250 houses containing 130,000 children. Over 6,000 of those boys became priests. One of them was Dominic Savio. Don Bosco met Dominic in October 1854. Dominic was 12 years old, small, frail, quiet. Don Bosco said, "What do you want to do?" Dominic said, "I want to become a saint." He died at age 14. March 9th, 1857. Don Bosco saw his death weeks before it happened. In June 1954, Pope Pius X canonized Dominic Savio, the youngest non-martyr saint in church history. Don Bosco trained him. Don Bosco formed him. Don Bosco saw his sanctity and protected it. He saw boys who died unrepentant and went to hell. He said once, "I have seen many things in my dreams. I have seen heaven. I have seen hell. I have seen purgatory. I can tell you this. It is far easier to go to hell than most people think. One mortal sin is enough. One unconfessed sin. One act of pride. One act of lust. One act of disobedience. And if you die in that state, you are lost forever. That is not cruelty. That is justice. God gives every soul 1,000 chances. He sends parents, teachers, priests, friends, dreams, warnings, graces. But if a soul rejects them all, God respects that choice. He lets them go, and they fall. A boy prays the rosary every night. His classmates find out. They call him names. He stops praying. A boy refuses to go to a party where there will be drinking and impurity. His peers call him weak. He goes to the party. He falls. That is human respect, caring more about man's opinion than God's. Don Bosco said that trap caught more souls than all the others combined, because it disguises itself as social survival, as fitting in. It's not being weird, but it is cowardice, and cowardice damns. Made confession impossible because the boy was too ashamed to speak the words. Don Bosco said, "Purity is the guardian of all virtues. Lose purity and you lose everything." He was right. Studies from the Salesian archives show that 90% of boys who left the oratory and died in sin had first fallen into impurity. It was the gateway. Once that door opened, every other sin rushed in. Don Bosco saw disobedience as the root of all evil. He asked his guide in the dream, "What was the first sin?" The guide said, "Disobedience. Adam and Eve were not driven from Eden because of pride alone. They were driven out because they disobeyed. Disobedience to God, disobedience to parents, disobedience to superiors, disobedience to the church," Don Bosco said. "Tell your boys that by obeying God, the church, their parents, and their superiors, even in little things, they will be saved. Obedience is the key. Without it, there is no virtue. Without it, there is no safety. Without it, there is no heaven. If you hide a sin in confession, that confession is invalid and you are still in mortal sin. And if you confess with true sorrow, you will be forgiven instantly, completely, forever. Communion was a sword. Do you want the Lord to give you many graces? Receive him often. Do you want the devil to attack you? Stay away from communion. Two things terrify the devil: fervent communions and frequent visits to the Blessed Sacrament. The rosary was another sword. Devotion to Mary was a shield. Don Bosco built a massive basilica to Our Lady Help of Christians in Turin. It still stands today. In another dream, Don Bosco saw boys attacked by a serpent over 20 feet long. The Blessed Virgin appeared and handed them rosaries. The moment the rosaries touched the serpent, it fled. The rosary is the chain that binds the devil. Pray it every day. Another weapon was devotion to St. Joseph. Don Bosco said, "St. Joseph is the patron of a happy death. Many boys who prayed to him died young from accidents or illness, but everyone died in Don Bosco's arms after receiving last rites. Everyone died with a smile." Comment from which city you are hearing this from. This information comes from the biographical memoirs of St. John Bosco, published between 1898 and 1939 across 19 volumes by the Salesian Society, cross-referenced with sworn depositions from lay witnesses like John Bosco, documented in 1891, and verified against Don Bosco's personal handwritten journals preserved in the Salesian Historical Archives in Turin. These are not modern interpretations. These are primary source documents compiled within 10 years of Don Bosco's death by men who lived with him. Now back to the information. 130,000 children, 6,000 priests. Those priests went on to found more houses, more schools, more oratories. Today, the Salesians run over 3,000 institutions in 134 countries. They educate over 1 million young people every year. That is Don Bosco's legacy. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The real story is the souls, boys who would have died in prison, boys who would have died in brothels, boys who would have died in gutters, boys who instead became fathers, teachers, priests, saints. Don Bosco did not just save their lives, he saved their eternities. Stopped living the faith together. He saw the consequences. He saw the empty pews. He saw the abandoned churches. He saw the children walking away, and he saw where they were walking. Down that same rose-lined road, toward those same bronze gates, toward that same fire. The traps are still there. The lassos have different names now: pornography, relativism, materialism, screen addiction, gender ideology, militant secularism. But they function the same way. They catch, they drag, they damn. And most parents do not even see it happening. Their children are on the road. Their children are running toward the edge, and the parents are asleep. 57% of Catholics raised in the faith still identify as Catholic. That means 43% left. 43%, almost half. The study found that 79% of former Catholics leave the church before age 23. Before age 23. That is high school and college. That is when parents think their kids are safe. That is when parents relax. That is when the lassos strike. Another study from 2019 found that only 7% of millennials raised Catholics still actively practice their faith. 7%. That means 93% of young Catholics baptized, confirmed, and catechized are gone. 93%. They do not go to Mass. They do not pray. They do not believe. They are functionally atheist. And where do atheists go when they die? Don Bosco saw it. He told us. But we did not listen. Or they were taught, but it never sank deeper than their intellect. It never reached their hearts. It never became personal. It never became real. And the moment the world challenged it, it collapsed. The second reason is scandal. 39% of former Catholics cite clergy abuse scandals as a major reason for leaving. 39%. That is the sin of priests and bishops echoing across generations. That is the failure of shepherds to guard the flock. That is wolves in shepherds' clothing devouring the sheep. Don Bosco warned about this too. He said, "A priest who does not live what he preaches destroys more souls than he saves. He poisons the well, and the people walk away thirsty." The third reason is disagreement with church teaching on social and political issues. 37%. They do not like what the church says about marriage, sexuality, gender, contraception, abortion, life. They want the church to change. They want the church to conform to the world. And when the church refuses, they leave. They choose their politics over their salvation. They choose their feelings over truth, and they walk. Stopped caring. Why? Because their faith was never strong enough to resist the drift. Because they never built the habits. Because their parents never built the habits. Because Sunday Mass was optional. Because family prayer was rare. Because the rosary was foreign. Because confession was once a year at school. Because communion was just a ritual. Because faith was a checkbox, not a relationship. And when college came, or marriage came, or career came, or kids came, the checkbox disappeared, and they drifted, slowly, quietly, fatally. If Dad does not care, why should they? If Dad skips Mass for football, why should they go? If Dad never prays, why should they? If Dad treats faith like a hobby, they will treat it like a joke, and they will leave. A Gallup poll from 2008 found that 55% of Catholic men agree they do not get anything out of the Mass. 55%. More than half of Catholic men sit in the pew and feel nothing, learn nothing, receive nothing. Why? Because they do not come prepared, because they do not pray before, because they do not pay attention during, because they do not reflect after, because they treat Mass like an obligation instead of an encounter with God. And their children see that, their children learn that, their children repeat that, and their children leave. First, they believe the teachings. 64% say belief is extremely important. They believe Jesus is God. They believe in the resurrection. They believe in the Eucharist. Second, their religion fulfills their spiritual needs. 61% say this. They experience God in prayer. Third, their religion gives their life meaning. 56% say this. They know why they exist. They know where they're going. Those three things keep people in the church: belief, fulfillment, meaning. Don Bosco built his entire system around it: reason, religion, loving kindness. Teach them to think. Teach them to pray. Teach them they are loved. Do that and they stay. Skip that and they leave. Regular religious conversation, regular service, regular community. Those practices build muscle, spiritual muscle, the kind that resists drift, the kind that fights back when the world attacks, the kind that says no to temptation and yes to grace. But most families do not have those practices. Most families pray together never. Most families attend Mass sporadically. Most families never talk about God except at Christmas and Easter. Most families have no spiritual rhythm, no structure, no foundation. And when the storms come, the house collapses. Matthew 7:24 through 27. Jesus said, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat against that house and it fell. And great was the fall of it." That is what is happening. That is what Don Bosco saw in 1868. That is what we see now in 2025. The house is falling, and great is the fall of it. Make the sign of the cross before meals. Bless your children before bed. Talk about God like He is real. Children watch lives. If your life is lukewarm, theirs will be cold. If your life is on fire, theirs will ignite. If you never skip, they learn that Mass is essential, that God is essential. Family prayer is also non-negotiable. Pray together every single day. Morning prayer before school, grace before meals, rosary in the evening. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just do it. If you do this every day for 18 years, your children will have a habit, a muscle, a reflex. And when they leave home, they will keep praying. You teach them. Sit down once a week and read the Bible together, read the lives of the saints, read the catechism, answer their questions. Show them that faith is reasonable, that the church is not a human invention, but a divine institution, that the Eucharist is not just bread, but the body of Jesus, that hell is not just a metaphor, but a destination. Teach them, over and over, until it sticks. He taught them constantly. He answered every question. He never avoided hard topics. He talked about sin. He talked about hell. He talked about purity. He talked about death. He talked about judgment. He did not sugarcoat it. He did not dumb it down. He told them the truth in love, and they responded. 17 boys changed their lives after the hell dream. 17 because Don Bosco told them the truth, because he showed them the danger, because he gave them the weapons. He did not leave them to figure it out. He fought for them. And that is what parents must do. Fight for your children. Do not assume they will be fine. Do not assume they will come back. Do not assume someone else will reach them. You fight, you pray, you teach, you discipline, you protect, you warn, you guide, you love, and you do not stop, ever, even if they push back, even if they rebel. Even if they walk away, you keep fighting, because their souls are at stake, because hell is real, because heaven is real, because eternity is forever, and you are the one God gave them to. You are their shepherd, and shepherds fight for their sheep. People told him to slow down. He said, I will have time to rest in heaven. Right now, the devil does not rest. Why should I? He built homes, he built schools, he built churches, he built an order. He wrote books, he gave missions, he heard confessions, he celebrated Mass, he taught, he preached, he juggled, he prayed, he dreamed, and he saved souls. Over 130,000 children passed through his hands. How many were saved? We do not know the exact number, but we know this. At Don Bosco's funeral on January 31st, 1888, 40,000 people came to pay respects. 40,000. Almost the entire city of Turin. They came because he loved them, because he saved them, because he showed them Christ. Pope Pius V knew Don Bosco personally. He declared him blessed in 1929. He canonized him on Easter Sunday, 1934. He gave him the title Father and Teacher of Youth. That is who John Bosco is. A father, a teacher, a saint, a prophet, a warrior, a shepherd who never stopped fighting for his sheep. Gender ideology replaces pride. Militant secularism replaces human respect. But they function the same way. They catch, they drag, they destroy. And most parents do not see it. They hand their children smartphones at age 10. They let them scroll TikTok for hours. They let them watch Netflix unsupervised. They let them hang out with friends whose parents have no standards. They let them date at 13. They let them miss Mass because they are tired. They let them skip confession because it makes them uncomfortable. They let them drift. They let them fall. And then they wonder why their kids leave the church, why their kids reject the faith, why their kids embrace the world. It is not a mystery. You did not fight. You did not build the practices. You did not teach the truth. You did not live the faith, and your children learned. They learned that faith does not matter, that God is optional, that church is boring, that sin is not real, that heaven is uncertain, that hell is a joke, and they acted accordingly, and they left. Decide that family prayer happens every day. Decide that screens are limited and monitored. Decide that you will talk about God. Decide that you will read the Bible together. Decide that you will pray the rosary together. Decide that you will go to confession together. Decide that you will serve the poor together. Decide that your home will be a domestic church, a place where Christ is Lord, a place where Mary is Queen, a place where prayer is constant, a place where truth is taught, a place where love is lived, a place where children are formed into saints. Decide, and then do it. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, because your children are on the road, and the road slopes downward, and the traps are waiting, and the gate is open, and the fire is burning, and time is running out. Communion, the rosary, devotion to Mary, devotion to Joseph, obedience, purity, vigilance, prayer, sacrifice, love. Those weapons work. They always have, they always will. But you have to use them. You have to pick them up. You have to train your children to use them. And you have to keep using them every single day until your children are grown and rooted and safe. And even then, you keep praying. Because the fight never ends. Because the devil never rests. Because souls are always at stake. Don Bosco understood this. He lived this. He died for this. And he waits in heaven now, praying for parents who will do the same, praying for fathers who will lead, praying for mothers who will teach, praying for families who will fight, praying for children who will be saved. He was 72 years old, worn out, exhausted, sick, but at peace. His last words to his Salesians were simple. "Tell my boys I wait for them in paradise." Then he closed his eyes, and he went home. 6 years later, investigators opened Don Bosco's tomb as part of the canonization process. They expected to find bones. They found something else. Don Bosco's body was incorrupt. His face was intact. His hands were intact. His cassock was intact. And on his right palm, investigators found a faint scar, a burn mark, circular, about 2 inches across, perfectly preserved. The mark from the dream, the mark from the wall, the mark that proved everything he said was true. Hell is real. The road is real. The traps are real. The fire is real. And parents must fight, because if they do not, their children will fall, and the fall will be forever. That scar sits in the Salesian archives in Turin today. You can request to see it, you can examine the photographs, you can read the medical reports, you can verify the witnesses. This is not legend. This is not folklore. This is not myth. This is documented history. Don Bosco touched the outer wall of hell in a prophetic vision in 1868. The vision burned his hand. The burn left a scar. The scar remained on his body until death. And the scar remains visible today, 137 years after his death. That is the evidence. That is the proof. That is the warning. Hell is real, and your children are walking toward it. Unless you fight, unless you pray, unless you teach, unless you love, unless you build a home where Christ is Lord and faith is lived and truth is taught and children are formed into saints. Unless you do that, they will leave. And where they go, Don Bosco already saw. He told us. The bronze gate, the lake of fire, the eternal screaming, the endless burning, the hopeless begging, the permanent separation, forever. And that is too high a price to pay for comfort, too high a price to pay for convenience, too high a price to pay for peace, too high a price to pay for fitting in. Fight for your children. Because St. John Bosco saw what happens when you do not. And he is still warning us from heaven, through his dreams, through his life, through his order, through his scar. Fight.